Welcome to another episode of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, your home for the latest news and analysis from the world of college hoops. Back again are your hosts, Josh Burton, Phil Dexter, and Peyton Burton.
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another edition of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, episode 150. I'm, of course, your host, Josh Burton, and joining me again tonight are a pair of my teammates, Phil Dexter, Trevor Everett. Fellas, we've hit the big milestone, 150 episodes. When you say it out loud, it does not seem real, considering when we started this thing with Peyton and I know Peyton's not here with us tonight, but we started this thing literally not knowing what the hell we were doing in my parents' car at the time on a phone. Now you look at everything we've done since then, adding you guys 150 episodes. That is a lot of podcast time doing this.
Yeah, man, it's a big deal. I feel like I've been here for close to half of it now. I mean, I think I joined somewhere in the 90s, so it's weird that it's been that long, but just, proud to be a part of something going this long, going this strong, man.
I don't know what I have to add to this. This is only my fourth episode, so I'm super excited to be here and talking to Silas.
Well, 150 episodes, that is a lot of hours. But tonight we've got a special guest to put down on the big milestone episode. We had to get a big guest, and you guys will remember him. He joined us last summer. As a matter of fact, this is the first time we've had him on the show since last summer when he came on as a rising high school prospect. Now he comes back to us as an official member of the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC. We want to welcome back to the show Mr. Silas Demary Jr. Silas, my friend, congratulations, first of all. And how are we doing? I know we talked off air. You're chilling at a beach before the real work begins, but Congratulations, and how are we doing?
I want to say first, thank you guys for having me up here again. It feels good to get back. After I went through a summer, you guys were talking about how I did the year before that. I mean, it's just been crazy. I've just been enjoying the life. It's been crazy, especially since I decommitted and then found another school. Like, it's just been crazy, but I just kept my head down, just stayed focused.
Yeah, and I could only imagine it's one thing to be a high school student. It's another to be a high school athlete. And it's a whole nother thing to be in the position that you were as a four-star recruit, a high-profile, highly recruited, and highly touted prospect. I want to get into your SEC, or your USC, should I say, decommitment, what led you to Georgia and all that. But when you look back now that your high school career is over, if you can kind of encapsulate your high school, your 4 years of high school basketball, AAU basketball, when you look back now, what are the memories you're taking from that'll help you as you head into Georgia?
The memories I'm taking are just a lot of the adversity I went through, as a freshman, a sophomore, then, going through adversity, learning winning ways, learning how to be tough and just bringing winning to everywhere I go. So just between those two things, I think I'll use that a lot within the next level.
Phil?
Tell me a little bit about what Combine Academy and Coach Michael Wright's done for your development, as obviously you're going to be, originally committed to USC, and we know how that roster changed and adapted over the last couple of months, and then obviously going to play for a really respected coach in Mike White. So tell me about how Combine's been a huge part of that process.
Combine's just been a very big role, being able to come from a school where I didn't have a lot of access to gym time outside of practice, the resources they had, then the trainers, the teachers, and then like Coach Mike, he just poured into me a lot. Just keep building who I am as a person, me on and off the court, trying to perfect my craft every day in and day out. So, I mean, Combine and Coach Mike, they played a very big role within me making a college decision, so.
Phil?
When you mentioned the college decision, so we'll get right into that then. You decommitted from USC, obviously. We all know that. But correct me if I'm wrong here, Georgia was not really in the mix of your recruitment as much the first time. So what sort of got them heavier in the mix the second time and ultimately led you to Athens and, becoming a Bulldog?
The second time, originally they recruited me, then they stopped because of some things that happened. But I mean, the second time, I just felt like they came in with a plan for my family and I, just something went off. I'm sorry, but like I was saying, they came with playing for me and my family, just looking at the long-term half for myself, they just came with everything the right way. And I just felt like the first time they came for the in-home visit, everything just felt the right way. It just felt like home again.
Well, and speaking on that feeling of like a home kind of family atmosphere, Coach Mike White obviously came over from Florida. This last season was his first year at Georgia, and they started to make big strides compared to where Georgia it's fair to say, kind of fallen off a little bit in the years leading up to Coach White. But they took better steps. They got a win over Kentucky and Rep Arena. They had some big marquee wins this year. So when you look ahead to this roster, on paper, with yourself included now, they've reeled in some high-profile transfers. When you look ahead to your upcoming freshman year in the SEC playing for Georgia, what do you see out of this roster from what you know of it now? And how excited does that make you to be a part of a program who seemingly is headed in the positive direction?
For me, just looking at the guys that we're bringing in high school and transfers, like I feel like we're bound for a breakout year. We have a lot of guys that's hungry to win, hungry to get to the tournament, like try to win a national championship. We got a lot of dogs, so I feel like we just really coming together as a group to really lock in and have a breakout year, especially get things back right in Athens. As you know, they're on the right track. Coach Mike, they went from 2 and whatever to like 500. So just coming in with those guys, I think we're bound to have a breakout year.
And how much have you, since your commitment to Georgia, how much have you kind of started to bond with your teammates? Have you gotten to know them a little bit? Is there text threads? Could you fill us in on that, what the process is like, especially as an incoming freshman, to start building that bond early?
Yeah, definitely, just reaching out to some of the guys over social media. We have little conversations here and there. We just started our group thread with everybody in there today. So getting everybody acclimated and knowing each other, just starting to gel. I feel like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, and, you sort of mentioned before off air that, you're enjoying your last couple weeks of downtime here. So, fill some of us in who are maybe, from the outside looking in of a college program. What is that summer schedule kind of looking like for you so far?
So far, I get there June 3rd. So, on the 5th, we're starting. We have appointments, practices, training sessions, figuring out classes. That schedule, like, you're pretty much from the time you wake up to the time you lay down, you're doing Georgia basketball things all day. So that schedule is always going to be pretty hectic.
And does that include like old school two-a-days or the summer conditioning? Let's be honest. I'm sure you're probably dreading that a little bit, right? Like,
yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit, but I'm looking forward to it. I enjoy the work. So, it's all a pleasure in the work. So.
Yeah, and going to play for a coach like Coach Mike White, obviously he's going to demand you play defense, and he's going to demand you to play hard. Like you hear Jimmy Dykes when he's on the call, Coach White does not negotiate playing hard. Like he'll negotiate maybe shot selection and stuff, but he won't negotiate playing hard. You either play hard or you don't play. And that seems, having followed your high school career, it seems like you will have no issue with that coming in. Again, back to like the summer workouts and conditioning. Have you started your prep work? Because it is a difference from high school to this college level. Have you been doing some kind of off-season stuff yourself? Could you shed some light on what that's like, working out by yourself in preparation before the real work begins with teamwork?
Yeah, I've just been trying to work out as much as I can, get my body right, because I know those first few weeks are going to be brutal to my body. So just trying to trial and error of how I feel doing it this way, doing it that way, just trying my best to compare my work to how college is going to be. And I've just been prepping myself a lot, really. So.
Yeah, and that makes sense. You're going to a program we've mentioned just a little bit ago, about a program that is on the rise, getting better each year now. This will be the second year with Coach White. But it is still a traditional football school. Not trying to cause any riots with other places. But it's a football school. They're coming off the back-to-back national championships. So outside of the basketball realm, Georgia has great athletics. What excites you the most? Taking basketball away, what excites you the most? Just being a regular student there, going to the football games? Have you even thought about that yet?
A lot of pretty girls at
Georgia. Nah, just the thought of being around those football games, coming off back-to-back national championships, just being in that environment, as a student and also like as a player, just seeing how that college experience is, I feel like you only get one of those, so I'm just going to try and enjoy it the best I can.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier about you'll be playing for a really good program here with Mike White, as well as obviously the SEC is a really tough basketball conference. I know there's some really great places. I know Josh, he's a big Kentucky guy. I know you're probably going to, if you couldn't say Rupp Arena for me, that'd be great. But is there anywhere you're looking forward to play, and is there anybody at that place you're looking to play against?
I'm definitely looking forward to playing Tennessee. One of my friends go there, Jonas Adu, 7-footer, the center out there. So I'm definitely looking forward to playing them because, we worked out a lot these past 2 summers. Like when he comes home, we're always in the gym together. So like our friendship has grown a lot since then. So I can't wait to play them.
Well, speaking on those environments, the SEC, now that it is getting better as a basketball conference with the different coaching hires, talent coming in, it is a much deeper conference. Mm-hmm. But comes with that is some very tough environments to go play in. You go play in Mississippi State on a Wednesday night. It's not an easy place to play. So have you thought about, besides Tennessee and the Rupp Arenas, have you thought about those Wednesday nights? Maybe it's a cold December night and you're tired. Have you even allowed yourself to think about, man, we got to go in and try to steal the win, what it might be like, kind of daydreaming about some of those environments?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mentally, I've definitely put myself in positions to where it's like, man, I'm tired. I'm mentally drained from school, from working out, from traveling, like just trying to put my brain to how I can keep pushing myself to get over that hump. So I just mentally been doing little mind games with myself just to prepare myself for that.
Well, and speaking of the adjustments kind of going from high school to college, you're a guy who's always, been sort of a natural leader on and off the floor for your teams. How do you strike that balance between a new guy and a freshman coming into a new program, but also, that's still your personality? How do you strike that balance?
For me, I would just say how I would strike that balance is trying to understand how everybody's personality is, like who I can talk to this way, who I can understand this way, like just trying to figure out who each and everybody is. So that's how I would strike the balance.
And playing off Phil's question there, coming in as a freshman with some veteran transfers that we've mentioned coming in, some guys coming back from a team who did get better, your role will now change. Not necessarily playing time, but as far as now you're kind of the low man on the totem pole again, back to hearken to your freshman year of high school. Being a leader that you are, like Phil mentioned, how do you think that's going to translate to the college level? In your mind, do you think that, well, I'll just see how it goes and go from there? Or how do you think that's going to translate, being a natural leader, but now you're kind of the low man on the totem pole again?
Mm-hmm. I think for me, just earning my right for my teammates to understand what I'm saying. Coming in as a freshman, there's a lot of older guys, but I feel like if I can do my thing and show them like why I'm here, like it's a reason why I'm here, and they understand, then we'll start learning from each other more. We'll start agreeing with each other more. And then, like, just not being afraid to speak up on things like saying in the locker room something's not going the right way. Being able to be that voice just because I'm a freshman, I'm not afraid of some differences that it might cause. So and I know it's going to be a rough patch as a freshman, but just going through that early, I think I'll be able to be pretty good.
So, yeah, it's just finding your voice, because you mentioned it's not easy for a freshman to speak up in a locker room full of older vets. Mm-hmm. So it's impressive. I do want to ask, you say what you want, back to the USC. When you originally committed to USC, and then later on, whatever happened, you changed your mind, now you're at Georgia. Could you kind of talk us through what led to the decommitment, going to Georgia? How did all that play out?
So for me, a lot of people like to use their own opinion and try to explain my reason on why I left. But the reason I left was because their star player came back for his 5th year. He plays around 29 to 30 minutes. He averaged 17 points. Like, I just know he's going to play. And then, they're bringing in Isaiah. Isaiah's going to play as well. They got him listed as a 1 and done. So he's going to get his minutes. And, I just feel like as a freshman, I didn't want to just waste a year. I didn't want to redshirt a year. Just playing behind somebody else. I'm not saying I couldn't, but I'm saying, like, I feel like the way I was training as a player, I feel like as a freshman I could really be important to a team.
So you didn't want to get lost in the shuffle, basically.
Right.
Which makes sense. And honestly, I applaud you so much for speaking the truth, because there have been other routes you could have took to answer that. So I do appreciate you speaking the truth on that. And it makes sense. You don't want to get lost in the shuffle. You are coming in as a 4-star kid. Do you ultimately feel like Georgia, though, in your heart, that you've got to know Coach White and everything? Does this feel like a better fit for you now in hindsight?
Yeah, now that I look at it, like playing style, like coach's style, like, he just fits me as a player. He reminds me a lot of my high school coach. So I feel like the way that my high school coach pushed me is the way that he will as well.
I mentioned earlier a little bit about some of the transition and wanted to, how you've had a chance to join a really awesome roster here that's really done a great job around Coach White. One guy in particular is the transfer out of Niagara, Noah Tomlinson, right? He's going to be the guard there. Have you had a chance to interact with him? And I know somebody that's going to be a really good experience for you to learn from a guy that's played many good years, and I think a very underrated MAC conference, obviously, and he's transferring up to the SEC with a lot of good guys coming in. Speak to that relationship or how you're planning on integrating into the lineup and getting to know him well.
Yeah, so Noah was actually on my visit at Georgia. So, I talked to him a little bit about there. We talked about playing together if he wanted to go there. But after we both committed, we started building that relationship. We talk a lot here and there, talking about we're going to get in the gym. I'm going to just pick his brain a lot, understand, like, how college basketball is, like, little things I need to learn, little things I need to know. So the relationship I've been building with Noah has been pretty good.
So, Silas,
go ahead, Phil. Go ahead, Phil.
No, go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just going to say, to play off that real quick. So obviously you see a guy come in that has the college experience, that is looking to be a big time player for Georgia. So is that somebody you would like to say that you would almost study and kind of be his mentee in a way, like his mentor mentee kind of relationship?
Yeah, definitely. I could see that because, he's been in college for a long time, so he knows the game. He knows a lot about it. So I feel like just picking his brain and understanding what he knows already. I feel like he can learn a little bit from me as well, but just being able to learn from him because he's been around it a long time, I feel like that'll be a very good person for me to learn from.
Phil, go ahead now.
All right, yeah, before we finish it up here with you, Silas, I know we're trying to keep you, kind of short here so you can get back to your vacation. But if we talk to you again, after next season, what will this past season have had to have looked like for you to consider it a success?
I would definitely say being in the talks we're a top 3 SEC team. We competed well, won a lot of those big-time games early, a lot of those non-conference games. We go into the conference confident, finish the season top 2 or 3 in the SEC. We make the tournament, make a deep tournament run. Maybe even win the national championship. That's what I see. I have high goals for this team. So, for me, I look like we will have a very good year.
I'm sure Bulldog fans will be very happy to hear that, my man. Love the confidence.
And that's why we all gave you a round of applause, because that's what you should say. And you guys, honestly, from a journalistic standpoint, Georgia's going to be a lot of fun this year. It's going to be a very tough conference. Once again, a lot of incoming talent, transfers, freshmen like yourself. The talent pool in the SEC is loaded this year. Before we let you out of here, we kind of touched on it a little bit. As you head into Georgia, the workouts, everything starts to become real now. What are you looking forward to in Georgia this year as far as atmosphere? What do you want to gain out of being a student athlete? Talk us through that real quick before we let you go.
For me, I just want to gain as many friendships as I can because, building relationships with people and knowing people like outside of basketball is great because you can always call up that friend, maybe you need help with this, maybe you need help with that, or maybe they need help from you. Just building a relationship is really my biggest key, getting to know everybody around there because, Georgia's a big-time school with basketball, or even if you are a student. So building relationships is really my biggest thing that I'm looking towards getting there.
One last thing, I just thought of it too. When you guys start playing well this year and Dominique Wilkins shows up to a game, tell me what those feelings are going to be like when you have a Hall of Fame legend watching you play.
In my head, I'm going to be like, oh my God, is that Dominique Wilkins? Like, I'm shocked. I'm going to be shocked at first, but after I get off of that wave of being shot, I'm going to lock in, make sure we get the win, and try to introduce myself after the game.
Is it going to make you want to dunk on somebody's head and get a poster for
Yeah,
him?
definitely. Definitely catch his eye like that. So
Yeah, you want to catch a body like that for Dom, huh?
Yeah, that was for Dom.
Silas, seriously, we've enjoyed covering you since you came on last summer. We are proud of your progression. We will obviously be covering you more in depth this year. Now you're in our realm. We couldn't be more proud of you and your family. Congratulations, and we will look forward to talking to you again. And who knows, maybe you'll have a net with you from cutting down an SEC or national championship net the next time we speak. But seriously, congratulations, and we thank you for your time, man. Go back to the beach and enjoy your time before you have to start the real work.
Yes, sir. I got you. Thank you guys for having me, man.
Thanks, Silas.
Absolutely, man.
No problem.
What a good kid, man. It's
Seriously,
hard not to root for a guy like that.
Yeah, first thing I want to say is just like you mentioned, great kid, great family. I've gotten a chance to know his dad a little bit, talk to his dad a little bit. Just yeah, phenomenal family. Georgia's getting a really, really good one. And then on top of just, the off the court stuff, he's a really fucking good player. Like, excuse my French, but the kid can play. Like, he's maybe the best on-ball defender in this class. And I say that as obviously somebody who's a little biased, but like legit one of the best on-ball defenders in the class. Great offensive player as well. He can score from the post. He can shoot. He can run the whole show. Like he's the real fucking deal.
Well, we talked to him about it a little bit, right? Mike White's not going to allow you not to play defense. Like, you're going to have to defend to go play for Coach White. And I don't think Silas is going to have any problem. And the thing I love the most about that, as far as basketball answers, is when he said that, well, as a freshman, and I know it's scary, but if I have to speak up and things aren't going right, then I'm going to speak up. That takes balls to do that. That takes major balls to do that.
What I was super impressed with is like when, we asked about what success would mean this year, and straight away he's like, we want to finish top 2 or 3 in the SEC. He didn't set this bar low though. He wasn't like, oh, we want to finish top half of the SEC. He was like, no, we're coming out here to win big games. We're coming out here to finish top 2 or 3 in the SEC. Like, he knows what the deal is. He clearly understands the gravity of kind of this moment for him.
And Trevor, how about his answer to your question about going to Tennessee? Oh man, he's looking forward to being Thompson Bowling.
He didn't say it, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but Tennessee recruited him pretty hard until they signed Freddie Dilione before him, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's something in the back of his mind that wants to stick it to them a little bit.
Would be shocked if there was a 20-point per game performance or 20-point game performance there in Thomas Bowling. So.
Well, and there's big shoes to fill, and we talked about it. Georgia got better last year. They had a couple marquee wins last year. They got better from what they had been the last couple years prior. But there's big shoes to fill. Terry Roberts is gone, big-time scorer, super athlete. Do you think Silas is the type of kid? I don't think he'll do it at first because it's that freshman. You got to build yourself up and get acclimated. But do you think he's a kid that could kind of slide into that Terry Roberts role where he's a dog, athletic, big-time scorer, good defender? Do you think he could slide into that mold where the shoes are going to be left to fill of Terry Roberts?
I mean, I think so, but I'm probably higher on him than a lot of people, but I legit think that he's, a first-round talent in the NBA draft next year. Like, he's a guy that maybe is a little undersold. He's a top 50 recruit, so you don't want to act like he's coming out of nowhere. But like, I don't think people realize how good of an athlete he is. I don't think people realize how much of a college or NBA ready frame he has. I mean, he's 6'4", 6'5". He's long. Like, he's everything you want in a prospect. I think he'll step in and be, if probably not their leading scorer, initially this year, but I do think he could, easily step in and be their best player.
I think the fit alongside a coach like Mike White, I mean, we mentioned it earlier, just the kind of system and the kind of accountability he holds you to that I think is really good for his development, whether it's a freshman one and done like Phil just referenced. I don't think that's necessarily a goal that can't be achieved. I just think that that's going to be really important. I think sometimes, like we see with a lot of these West Virginia guys, a very similar style and system of guys that put you through a ringer with Coach Huggins. I know in the news, not so nice lately, but yeah, putting you through the ringer, and I think those kind of guys, they work out because you understand how to be a pro, you understand how to be you might not necessarily have the hardest work ethic, but you come in there and you learn that. So, and we know that he definitely has that. So I'm looking forward to that seamless fit. And I think the SEC is a very good challenge for him.
And we mentioned some of the other pieces Georgia picked up too, but they got RJ Melendez coming in, Jalen Deloche. Like, Georgia has a squad coming in next year that's a mix of good veteran talent, obviously young talent like Silas. Like, yeah, they're going to be a fun team to watch.
It's going to be. I don't know ultimately where Georgia will. Obviously have to see how it plays out. But Georgia, I think, is going to be in that mix of like 6, 7 teams that are not only tournament teams, but are all jockeying for position high atop the SEC. I mean, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Alabama, Georgia.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Took the words out of my mouth, Phil.
So the SEC is going to be one of the best conferences of college basketball, and they're going to have a talent like Silas there to showcase his skills and potentially Georgia back to this or to the NCAA tournament and potentially further in that. You love the confidence in him. Something else I appreciated, and I wanted to tell him that when we asked him about USC, I'm not lying because you guys know this as well. He could have tucked the easy way out and said something completely different, but he shot straight from the hip there, and I appreciate that so much. And he was just being honest. He didn't want to get lost in the shuffle. We know the talent coming into USC this year. It's not like talent-wise Silas can't compete with them, but he didn't want to take that chance of potentially getting lost in the shuffle. I appreciate the hell out of that answer.
That's what I was about to say. Is I appreciated just the the straightforwardness of it because he didn't specifically mention this, but I think most people assumed that Bronny, there was the rumor of Bronny essentially being still recruited or whatever. From what he said and from what I had already heard, it was when Boogie Ellis is coming back, the leading scorer from the team. You also have the number 1 recruit coming in. You do potentially have LeBron James Jr. coming in. Like, it just doesn't make sense for a guy, who, as he mentioned, you don't have a year to burn on a red shirt. Like, you only have so much time. You got to strike while the iron's hot. But like you said, I just really appreciated how straightforward he was. And he was like, listen, I'm tired of hearing all these rumors. Like, this is what it was.
I think that shows back to the hard talks as freshmen. I think that leadership quality shows even in a casual talk like this, interview type setting. He doesn't lack confidence, and you absolutely need those type of players to be special. So really proud of him, really excited. Guys, before we get out of here, it's episode 150. This is going to be a much shorter episode than normal, but I do want to talk some current events right now in college basketball that's happened in the last couple of weeks since we last recorded. And Trevor, you almost led me into it perfectly. Let's talk about the Huggy Bear situation real quickly. He was on a radio station out of Cincinnati, his old stomping grounds. He still has that hatred for Xavier. You can tell in his comments, but he made some very ill-timed, ill-thought-out, however you want to phrase that, comments about Xavier in a derogatory fashion. And there's been some pushback and fallout out of that. Your guys' thoughts on Huggy Bear, because we talked about this a few shows ago, previewing West Virginia a little bit as far as transfer winners, and they've got a good team coming in this year. It'd be a shame if their Hall of Fame coach derails that by making idiotic comments. Your guys' thoughts on Huggy Bear?
It shouldn't derail anything as of this moment, assuming that, they can actually get him strapped down to a chair and make him do the sensitivity training like we've joked about privately. But
that'd be a hell of a video, like a live stream pay-per-view to watch him in that.
I'd pay probably $30. I don't know. And no, at the end of the day, I don't think it derails anything. I've been thinking about this because I knew we were going to do the show eventually. And it, gut reaction right when you see it, it's horrible and it shouldn't have been said. And obviously I don't condone anything that he said, but from a basketball standpoint, it'll be forgotten by next month completely. Honestly, I forgot about it till you brought it back up. So being prepared for this conversation was the only reason I remembered it. And $1 million, toss in the hat for a guy that makes a couple million a year. And at the end of the day, they did what they could to cloud the situation. I think the history of it's interesting though. Like you mentioned the Xavier stuff, and I'm more so referring to the guy that interviewed him, longtime radio host there for the better part of almost 50 years, who was the same guy that interviewed another coach. I don't remember the exact backstory. I should have probably had that prepared. But basically there was a guy that got fired who was a coach that almost said the exact same thing verbatim as Huggins did. And I was like, the writing's on the wall here. Then he's probably fired if it's the exact, and it was just so many parallels. And I'm like, this is kind of messed up. And I hope that this gets resolved properly. And call it what you want. This feels proper for how we handle things now in sports.
Yeah, Trevor, I'm glad you mentioned the radio host, because that was kind of like the thing that stuck out to me the most from the comments for some reason.
The tone that he was using was very interesting.
But afterwards, when the radio host, when they're like trying to go to commercial, and the radio host is like, Bob Huggins, folks, he's the best. Right after he just, said a slur. Like, it was the whole thing. Obviously, what Huggins said was unacceptable, but just like the whole way that even the radio station handled it in the moment just seemed very weird to me.
Well, and we all know Huggy Bear is a very old school coach. The radio host you mentioned, Trevor, has been there for decades now. And in a times past, we're not condoning it, say it was right, but in a times, era bygone, you said that stuff all the time, and you didn't necessarily mean anything derogatory. But you can't say that now. With more time has passed, more knowledge, more acceptance, more everything, Huggy Bear's got to know better. Even if he did not mean anything by it like he claims, you cannot say that, because you are offending and putting down a whole group of people, and that's unacceptable. He's got to know better. Like, if he's talking to his players about, hey, don't do stupid stuff, don't do stupid shit, then he can't go on a radio station and do the same stuff that he's preaching his players not to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally agree. And I don't know. It's just like, I don't want to excuse anything that, he said, like you said, but it's just like, if any coach was going to say this, like, are we surprised it was Bob Huggins?
No.
That's kind of, when you guys texted me about it, like when it happened, or, whoever sent the group text, I was just like, oh yeah, Bob Huggins. Like, this sort of, again, not defending him or saying it was right or anything, but it's just like, I don't think this shocks anybody that Huggins, maybe would say something off color.
I found an even more interesting part of it from CBS Sports about, like, and I'll look into next time we get together. I'll find the history of the other guy getting fired, and like I said, somebody listening right now probably knows what I'm talking about, but it came up whenever it happened. But you mentioned with the "he's the best" comment. Cunningham is the guy that's been there for almost 50 years, the radio host, and he asked his co-host Steve Moeller, who's a former assistant coach for Huggins at Cincinnati. So all of this ties together. This is a nasty, vicious story that just honestly shouldn't have happened, and too many things are tied to it. And I just,
well,
there.
And I don't mean to laugh at the situation. I'm just more
the
laughing
irony of that.
The irony of it, and just again, we all mentioned Bob Huggins is an adult man who knows what he can and cannot go on public radio and say. So just like the fact that he said it, the fact that these dudes thought it was hilarious, like just the whole thing is like, it's just, yeah.
Well, they basically were enabling him. Like, deep down, it's probably stuff that they've said in private many a times. And the fact he said it on radio air, they probably started laughing and was like, oh, great job. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's unacceptable, especially in 2023 when people will come at your neck for anything anymore.
Talking about pay-per-view things you would pay for, I would pay more than $30, like I referenced earlier, for him being strapped to the chair watching the sensitivity training. I would pay at least $100 for that FCC recording, whatever they called him later that hour. They were like, hey, or FCC calling the radio manager. I would have paid at least $100 to hear that phone call. I mean, somebody got in trouble really bad. It's great.
Yeah, I'm sure that's I'm sure that audio did not get a replay on WLW down in Cincinnati, the AM station where the Cincinnati Reds come on. Before we get out of here, like I said, we're not going to talk a lot of the transfer news because there's so much. We did have the deadline pass as far as transfer portal deadline. People can still now, if you're a graduate assistant, have that. You can still transfer and all that. But the one piece I did want to talk about before we got out of here is Caleb Love. Forgot to mention him on the last show as far as going in depth on him when we were talking about all this a few shows ago. But now he has decommitted. Remember, the rumors came out a few weeks ago that he was going to decommit from Michigan. And then he came out on Twitter and I think Instagram both and said, no, that's not true. But then he decommits, but partly not his fault, kind of his fault. He didn't get the grades essentially to get into Michigan. We all know Michigan has a very strict standard of academics. He did not get in. So this is a two-part question. Where does Caleb Love end up next? And two, how bad of a look is that for North Carolina? Because if you remember, Joey Baker transferred from Duke and got into Michigan no problem amidst the North Carolina for years now, the fake classes. Guys, your thoughts on this?
Phil, you're a lot more, I think, available for this conversation.
He's the biggest Carolina guy.
No. I just, I'd love to hear somebody who had some information on this. I'd love to hear you talk about it.
Well, I mean, I don't have anything like inside per se. So well, first of all, let's touch on a couple of things, Josh. I don't think that it has anything to do with the academics at North Carolina.
Thank you.
Necessarily. I just want to knock that out there because I am a Carolina hater and those fuckers will come after me. So I don't think that had anything to do with it. I just think, we know how student athletes can be. Caleb Love is probably, I don't even want to say this, but, may have been doing the bare minimum.
Just say allegedly. We can't be sued if you say allegedly.
I'm not even basing it on information. I'm just going off my inkling of how the situation has played out. It would seem to me that Caleb Love probably did the bare minimum that he could have done at UNC to get by and stay eligible. And that's probably bit him in the ass a little bit here. As far as where he's going, all that kind of stuff, I don't know, man. The only thing I've really been inside on is I knew he wasn't going to Michigan. And then he denied it and said he was still going to Michigan.
Don't you think that makes it worse?
Yeah, I see. Part of me wonders how that situation played out. If there was because I know allegedly he appealed Michigan's decision. So I wonder if the information came out through some sources that he was going to get denied. And then he was like, hey, hold up a second. We're actually appealing. Or if a decision had been made at that point. And that's if the academics are even the only thing in play here, because you've heard rumors that it was actually, some NIL money situation where, maybe Michigan couldn't match some of the other teams that were coming in. I don't know. I don't know what to make.
I have to push back on the could have been the, and by the way, I know you're just speculating. I have to push back on the, oh no, we're trying to appeal that. Let's wait on that, whatever. This is not exactly the most calculated individual. This is the same guy that thought, sleeping with his backcourt mate's girlfriend was a good idea.
Allegedly.
And if that was something that, we were taking into consideration for Michigan, he'd be there already. So, to answer his question and not go down a rabbit hole, I do think Missouri, who I originally predicted before, is ultimately where he ends up, to try to keep the strain on the tracks. But no, at the end of the day, this is not exactly a situation that I'm uber excited about. Yes, he's one of the better guards in college basketball, but having to watch him for 3 years, I really don't care if the Carolina fans come after me because way too many of them listen to this show and mine as well. So I don't really care. Ultimately, he's not worth all of this trouble and conversation for a guy that shot on sub 40% this year. So I'm just not a fan, and it is what it is.
And Trevor, you mentioned something I just want to touch on real quick. He maybe doesn't make the most well thought out decisions. So could this also have been a thing where it was oh, I'm going to Michigan to play with Hunter Dickinson. And it hadn't even occurred to him that Hunter Dickinson may not be at Michigan. And because, I believe, I would have to go look at the timeline, but I think he announced his commitment to Michigan before Dickinson entered the portal.
He did. Yeah. I think that lines up, yeah.
That also wouldn't shock me.
I want to say be nice. I don't think we're being mean, but to be nice to Caleb Love, we've always said, talent-wise, the kid's got it. There's no question, talent-wise, the kid has it. It's the decision-making on all fronts, it seems like. But if he somehow can get a coach, because what he needs more than anything is a coach that holds him accountable. We know that Hubert Davis did not do that to the full maximum. Would have Juwan Howard? Probably not. He needs to go to a place that's going to hold him accountable. I like the Missouri fit that you mentioned, Trevor. That's where I was leaning as well, because Dennis Gates will hold him accountable. He will play in a fun style. They will press. They'll get it. It's tailor-made for a guy like Caleb Love, so he doesn't have to think so much. You score the basket, you press. You miss the basket, you press. Get after it, run up and down the floor. That's a perfect fit. We still hear the Indiana rumors. IU needs guards because they're loaded in the front court. Indiana's going to be really good again next year. They need guards. I think Mike Woodson could get something out of Caleb Love, but anything other than that, I don't know where Caleb expects to go. Where was some of the news schools that just popped up yesterday? I heard rumors about. I think Illinois and somewhere out west.
You did not hear
Shot
Illinois.
that down immediately.
You did not hear Illinois.
Let me go back.
Maybe you did, but I know Steven Decker. Shout out to Steven Decker in our Everything College Basketball group. He threw out some names. I hadn't seen the report, but Gonzaga, Arizona, and who was the third one? Off the top of my head, I do not remember.
I think it was Illinois, wasn't it? Or am I making that up?
I'm pretty sure I thought you were just making that up to fuck with me, to be honest.
No, I think it was Illinois, wasn't it? Look, I'll try to check.
We're going to miss out on Ray J. Dennis. I don't
know it wasn't Illinois. The wrong orange team, Texas.
Texas I did see that. I did see that Texas. With Ron Holland.
It's not going to be Texas now. Guaranteed it's not Texas because Tyrese Hunter announced he's coming back today.
Oh, there you go. So.
Well, that's a huge...
I want to say, speaking of coming back, I know Caleb Love, I just can't do more than 5 minutes on Caleb Love per episode. That's just a rule I have. But, no, I'm kidding. But talking about coming back, there was a lot of really notable ones. Kevin McCullough being another one that was one I wanted to throw out there. I don't want to talk about Kansas for more than 5 minutes either because that roster has already been spoken for enough, being loaded with, I think, no one below a 4-star at this point, whether they're transfer or whether they're a recommit.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a guy who I had ranked in the 50s for this year's draft as an NBA level defender to come back to Kansas, I mean, he's gonna take the spot over Timberlake, but they're gonna be fighting over minutes, and it's gonna be an insane roster to look at.
Yeah, the Jayhawks gonna be good again. Like Bill gets his traditional kind of post big guy that he can run high lows with. He gets back an experienced 2-way player, and Kevin McCullough, who, barring injuries this last season, when he was on, he was really good for Kansas. They get an all-world defender back. Kansas is going to be really good again, and it begs the question. Peyton, obviously, our other co-host, Peyton's a big-time Kansas guy. He thinks he'll be number one. A little bias there, but I think they're in the discussion when our magazine comes out. They're going to be in the top 5, top 6. I still think Duke's going to end up being better preseason, and I think Marquette will as well. But this definitely is a big boost to Kansas to try to win another Big 12, potentially Final Four, and another national championship. The Jayhawks are going to be good again.
There's a rumor out there. Got to give credit to Trilly Donovan, but supposedly Ernest Uday considering coming back to Kansas still as well.
Yeah, and he got denied. Didn't he have a Caleb Love situation where he got denied St. John's, I think?
I didn't hear that, and it would shock me because I know he's been taking visits to Duke, and I can't imagine that St. John's academic requirements are harder than Duke's. But
maybe I was thinking of somebody else.
I've heard I think he took 2 visits to Duke, and then he just took a visit. Gosh, I shouldn't be talking if I can't remember, but he may end up back at Kansas as well.
Which would be another, rotational big guy that they need. The bottom line is Kansas is going to be really good. We're shaping up for another year where there's going to be some really good college basketball teams from top to bottom. I don't know if we're going to have another. I think it might be another year, looking ahead a little bit, where we're going to have like 9, 10, 11 teams that are really good. Nobody great, but I think it's going to set up for another crazy college basketball season. I think is what's going to happen. Silly season, shaping a lot of rosters. It's going to get crazy. Anything you guys want to say before we exit this historic episode 150 and get on out of here?
Nah, just want to give another, huge thank you to Silas and his family for, the time they've given us, how good they've been to the show, all that good stuff. And, we'll look forward to seeing his success this year.
Fine, I'll be the sellout. Phil and I wrote a mock draft. It get posted today. I'll be the sellout. Sorry. It'll be linked. House-enterprise.com. Shout out to house-enterprise.com. Top of the site there. You check out a lot of really great stuff from us, all of the group here at Everything College Basketball, and all the great things going on at house-enterprise.com. How was that plug? That was technically my first House Enterprise plug. So was that bad?
You did well. Speaking of which, I forgot to do it because we were so excited to get to Silas. But of course, everybody knows this show is presented in part with the House College Hoops and the House Enterprise. Head over to our site, house-enterprise.com, for more information. We're just slowly chugging along into the off season, into the deep dark abyss that is the off season. Got a lot of craziness coming up. We'll keep you up to date on the Twitter at ECB Podcast 10, on the Facebook group. By the way, we have eclipsed 1,000 members since the last time we came to you with the Coach Pear episode. I want to send a big shout out to everybody over the years who's been a part of this crazy meteoric rise of the Everything College Basketball brand. Sincerely, thank you. But other than that, we'll keep you guys up to date there. We'll come back at you with more shows down the summer. And go check out the articles. Check out houseenterprise.com. And until episode 151, a big shout out and thank you to the Silas Demary and his entire family. We will follow you. Cannot wait to get to some games and catch you in person, write about it. But until episode 151, for Phil, for Trevor, for Corey and Peyton, who are not here, we hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we will catch you down the road.